does Pip Hare ocean racing mean to me? I think it means inspiration, I think. There's so many parts of Pip's story I think we can all relate to in everyday life.
Pip Hare ocean racing means teamwork, I think. We've gone from Pip as a kind of single person campaign with a few motley crew hanging on and helping her. Now Pip Hare ocean racing is a professional, serious, competitive contender for the Vendée Globe 2024.
Pip Hare ocean racing, wow. I think it's opportunity. It's opportunity. It is just taking everything that is available to you and squeezing every ounce of performance out of it, of teamwork out of it, of, I don't know, it's just breaking down barriers and boundaries and just don't ever believe that you've ever stopped.
To me, it's about team. It's about a team who all have the same common purpose, that we want her to achieve the best possible outcome. And I think this time it's for her to have a competitive top 5 finish, which is bold, she'll kill me for saying that.
We've got the good budget, we've got time, good people, more to lose, I think probably. Last time we didn't know, it was low stakes-ish. If the boat got round, that was going to be a success. This time, obviously, there's a lot more pressure on the team, I guess, to create a boat that's going to do Pip justice. My name's Joff Brown, I'm Technical Director at Pip Hare Ocean Racing.
My name is Lou Adams and I am the Operations Director for Pip Hare Ocean Racing. My role during the 2020 campaign, by default, by the time we got to the start line, it was probably campaign manager.
So my name is Isla Reynolds. During Pip's 2020 Vendée Globe campaign, I was her communications manager.
I'm Hayley Clark and I'm the social media lead, so I look after Pip's social media channels.
My name is Pip Hare and I am the skipper of Medallia.
Building up to the start of the race was really interesting actually, because she'd gone from a really small campaign which she was pretty much running herself, that she'd got a bank loan out, she'd bought this boat, she'd made this huge step and taken a massive risk before Medallia came on board. But by the start of the race, there's just kind of mix of people from the sailing world, from kind of my world, the press world, from the medical world, just a really random mix, and that was really good actually. So we arrived and there's all these professional teams in their jackets looking really cool. And it was all new to all of us actually. It was brilliant. I think we had this real kind of melting pot of ideas, and one of our strengths I think was that we hadn't been a professional Vendée Globe campaign, and we were all there because we wanted Pip to make the most of this opportunity and really realise her dream. So it was a fantastic kind of team spirit.
It was a manic build-up. We were in a lockdown Britain. It was the only sport that was going ahead. And we had a team of volunteers and friends who were put together, and we suddenly realised this was happening. It was all go. So it was manic, but a real team spirit of these people who genuinely believed in Pip.
Build-up was weird because of COVID. It was a bit difficult because like a lot of the shops were shut and restaurants were shut and everything was shut. It was hard moving stuff around, supplies and stuff. We had everything sort of before we left really, and left in a pretty good place. But yeah, it was just weird not having people around.
Oh, the build up to the start of the race was, well, it was the end of I guess a 30-year journey for me. It was very tense. I was worried. You know, there's always a million and one things that you want to get done, that need to get done. You know, I was very preoccupied about getting the boat ready. But then we went into lockdown as well, and actually, you know, the start of the race for me was emotionally very difficult because I had expected the support of my family and friends. My whole family was supposed to be coming out. We'd rented a house. I was supposed to be staying with my mum and dad and having my nephews and nieces, and they weren't there. And the people that I thought were going to be there to support me weren't there. And so actually, probably the start of the race was the loneliest that I felt through the whole campaign.
We were in the midst of a global pandemic, so I was planning to go out with the team to obviously be at the start line. It was sort of bittersweet, watching, I guess, from home, but also I kind of felt connected to everyone because I was helping to tell the story back home on social and get the message out there. But seeing the work that had gone into it and how excited Pip was to set off and just what a challenge it was. Yeah, a mix of kind of excited but also daunting for the the task ahead, I guess.
How did I feel when Pip started the race? A relief in lots of ways. Like, this was what had been building for years and years, and there were times through the build-up over kind of the 2 and a bit years previously that she doubted. I think I had doubts. People took it in turns to kind of look at the enormity of the campaign and think, is this going to happen? And then suddenly I was stood on her boat, having come from a lockdown Britain, having sat kind of 2 days previously working in a hospital at a time, kind of staring down the barrel of a pandemic and thinking, this is phenomenal, how are we here? But I remember getting off her boat at the start line and just watching her sail away and just thinking, she's done it. Like, I can't believe it. This is it. She's at the start line of the Vendée Globe, the thing that she's dreamt of for so long and what she's worked tirelessly for. I mean, literally 24/7 doesn't really cover the amount of energy and tenacity that went into Pip's campaign. So yeah, it was a real mix of emotion, I think.
The Vendée Globe has a history of about only 50% of boats finishing the race, so you want her to get round, you just want her to finish. And then as the race kind of went on, you realised that the story she was telling was really hitting a nerve with people, especially during the pandemic. She could talk really eloquently about being on her own and what that meant, not being lonely, but choosing to be on her own and kind of relating that back to people who were in lockdown back in, well, not just in the UK, but all around the world. And she was doing amazingly well. She's in kind of one of the oldest boats in the fleet. She was, especially when she got to the Southern Ocean, she was smashing past loads of people who were in better, more modern, faster boats. So then it became not just about her getting back safely, but doing the best she could and really proving a point. And I think she started that race as the underdog, and everybody was surprised at how well she did. I think apart from her team, who know how determined she is. So it's really good to see other people recognise what an amazing woman she is, what an amazing sailor she is.
It's quite scary being on the shore, communicating with someone. You read about Point Nemo and these places that are literally so remote, and it's quite hard to get your head round. And it's amazing we have the tech to speak to Pip and kind of keep in touch, but I guess there is always that fear, like when you wake up in the morning, have we had a message overnight? And if we hadn't, was she okay?
When I started 20 years ago, you'd get a fax, from the skippers. It was all very slow. You could get pictures back, but not very easily. And now I think we probably only spoke on the phone twice, 3 times, hardly at all. So it was all WhatsApp. We
developed a style of communication that worked for all of us, and there were key things that we need to achieve through our communication. So I needed to let the team know that I was okay at all times, but also I needed to communicate with Joff, our technical director, what the state of the boat was, what I was doing to the boat, what jobs needed to be done, and then he would support me in that. And then there was the wider communication of telling my story. So a lot of what we did was through text messages and WhatsApps. We only really ever spoke when we absolutely had to. But I think I guess we learnt a way to communicate that was just enough to be supportive and just enough to give everyone the information they needed to deliver the best race possible, but it wasn't so much that it kind of impacted on my ability to be in the moment and to sail the boat.
Every time the boat broke, the hydro generators went, the rudder went, and I remember thinking, actually this isn't too bad for me because I'm not taking on that responsibility. And then the baton got passed to me, probably about 2/3 into the race when Pip went back up the Atlantic, and she decided to get herself stung by a jellyfish. And there was a cascade of events from there, really. She was really, really unwell for a good four or 5 weeks. She tested my brain and knowledge, and a lot of medics on shore, because I was asking a lot of questions, kind of sense checking. And I guess the fear for me then was making sure I got it right. The hardest time, and I guess the fear that really struck me, was one day we didn't hear from her, and she was set to have a BBC Live breakfast interview, and she hadn't called into it, and that was really unusual. And I remember exactly where I was. I was walking up to my office in the hospital, and Isla texted me saying, "Have you heard from her?" I said, "No, I haven't." And she said, "Well, it's unusual, she's missed her breakfast spot." And I said, "Oh, you know, she's probably fine." But in the back of my mind, I was thinking, it's really unlike her. And I looked on WhatsApp, you know how you can see where, when someone was last online, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and this was like 7. I was like, oh, you know, both Isla and I are pretty positive people. She'll be fine, she'll let us know. So Isla texted her and nothing. And I remember 8 o'clock came, and I had to go off to an ops meeting. And I phoned Isla, and Isla said, "No, I still haven't heard from her." So we phoned Joff. Joff's like, "Don't worry, we'll just phone the satellite phone." And he couldn't get hold of her, and I said, "Well, you know, let's look at the tracker." And Joff then said to me, he's like, "You can look at the tracker, but that boat can sail on its own for days. It's not going to tell us anything." And I remember thinking then, like, it was the first time I had a genuine fear in me. It's like, had something really catastrophic happened? You know, is she really unwell and hasn't got hold of me? You know, have we given her the right medication? Have we over-medicated? Everything was going through my head at 100 miles an hour. I remember that kind of heat rising through my body, and I'm not a particular panicker. But 8:30 came, and no one had heard from her. They had tried both her satellite phones, and it must have been about 8:45. Isla rang me saying, "I've heard from her. She just overslept. I could have killed her."
Considering we hadn't worked with each other before, and I think because certainly like Lou and Isla were still, and Hayley to some extent, still working in other jobs all the time anyway. So sort of trying to mesh that all together. I was the only one sort of full-time on the team at that point. And certainly that side of the team had never worked on a race like that before. Yeah, it was really good, I think.
I think one of the most interesting things about the Vendée Globe race is that it is a team event. Everyone is very focused on the skipper. It's solo sailing, you're doing it all on your own. But I'm not, and I never felt alone. And I think, you know, I've often said that there's a massive difference between lonely and being alone. And you choose to be alone, and when you're alone, you can actually be alone but supported. And everyone within our team had their roles to play, and their roles were important. Their roles were important in the way they supported me, in the way that they supported our sponsors, in the way that they gave information and answered questions to our audiences. And so we were a team that grew during the race, because we'd only been assembled very quickly before the race. But I think we grew to trust each other, and our roles within the team developed as the race developed, and it was one of the best things about the race. There are so many Vendée moments that I won't forget. The whole race, to be honest, was so incredible. And in a way now, a year later, it feels very, very far away. It almost feels sometimes like I didn't do it. But if I really focus, if I really kind of close my eyes and try to recreate some of those 3 months, then I think the place that I always go back to is the Southern Ocean. And actually it's kind of like almost like a holistic memory. I can remember the power and the energy, the noise the boat made, the vibration, my anxiety, my adrenaline, my fear, my excitement, smashing the expectations of myself and other people. And I think, you know, it's not one moment, it's this kind of building crescendo of so many different things, and how it made me feel. I think that's what I'll remember.
I'll never forget the moment when the rudder broke in the Southern Ocean. Rudder was a bad day. I was just sat at home. Going down the Atlantic's kind of relatively chilled out. You know you know, fundamentally probably if the boat's got going, it's going to be all right. The south leading to Australia is kind of all right. It's built up to Christmas. You have a lot of problems off South Africa. So if a boat gets past there, that's where people hit a lot of stuff. So if you get past there, then again you're in a pretty good place. And then after Australia, I just hate it basically because it's a really long leg then to Cape Horn, and it's obviously the most sort of perilous bit of it, the worst weather. The fleet's more spread out by then, and Pip was doing really well. I think because, you know, it played to her strengths and the boat's strengths because it was nasty conditions. She was pushing the boat really hard, gaining places, like doing really, really well. And then we had this problem where we thought the rudder had just dropped like 5 mil, which would have been a bit weird, but not, you know, there could be a few reasons for it. We were on a video call, which we didn't do many times, but she sort of took me down below to look at it. And as I was looking at it, I was like, I think the rudder's broken. And you could sort of see the whole stock sort of oscillating. And yeah, that was a fairly sickening moment.
There are a lot of moments I'll never forget during that race, but I guess it probably is what many people would say, which was the rudder change, because I think when Pip started out, you know, her social audience was fairly small, and actually during the campaign it grew significantly. And I think, as you know, someone looking after the social channel, I felt a real responsibility to kind of keep people obviously updated with what was happening. And at that point during the rudder change, she had, you know, a lot of people following her and really, you know, interested, worried, and it was almost, you know, it felt a bit like a cliffhanger. You know, we got the news in that it had, you know, broken, and you're just constantly thinking, what's going to happen next? You know, is this the end of the race? And you know, if it's not, how's she going to overcome it? And there's all these kind of things that you battle with. So I think I'll always remember that, because I just remember the next morning waking up thinking, have we had the overnight message? Is everything okay? And obviously it was. And just to see, you know, her practice that before she left, to do it real life, you know, in the ocean, in the middle of nowhere, was just incredible. I think it's something I'll never forget.
When Pip crossed the finish line, we were all very relieved. It was a really tough 2 days before that. Pip had been ill and on and off for a month pretty much. Didn't really have enough food at the finish, and again for the few weeks really before that. I think the boat was on its knees. You know, the amount of time she could actually allocate to sailing and pushing the boat, I think, was tiny really. It was actually keeping the boat running day to day was really difficult by then. And then she had some big breeze, broke some stuff. Right, you know, that literally we were down in Le Sable, I think, a week before the finish. And those last 2 days, yeah, it was just terrible, really. And then I think we just wanted to get in the rib really and just go and get her. So we sort of set off when she was still a long way away and just ended up out there in the middle of the night. But it felt like the right thing to do. But no, it's good, relief.
When she crossed the finish line, I think I don't get that. I don't get that emotional. I think because I'm used to dealing with other people's stories, you kind of have a bit of a divide. So you just deal with their stories and stick them out to the press, and it kind of all happens at arm's length. It's very professional. But when she came back in, it was really emotional. Again, I think to see this solo sailor in the middle of the night, in the dark, she had a head torch on, and kind of the boat was lit up by kind of lights from the ribs, made you realise how isolated and lonely and small she had been going around the world, because all the time the video you're getting back is from her point of view, so the boat looks big and it's her centre of the world, but kind of having that sudden outside perspective, that was really emotional. I think it's kind of you realise then that she had achieved the most amazing thing and done it in style and done it against the odds, and she'd got home. So it's a mixture of relief, admiration, inspiration, and it was. I kind of cried a bit when she came over, and I'm not really a big crier, but that was amazing to see her complete something that she'd been working so hard for so long. It was just amazing.
At that point, there were so many people interested in Pip's story, following her. So I think I shared everybody's kind of happiness in that, you know, it was just incredible to see her cross the finish lines. And so I was sort of sat up in the middle of the night, I think it was like 4 a.m, just watching it all live and covering Twitter and kind of seeing the news come in real time. So to actually see it on screen but also to have seen the journey she'd been on and be so involved in that, it was really emotional, and yeah, just incredibly happy.
It was incredible. It was absolutely phenomenal. Having kind of her being so ill up the Atlantic, we were sat on this river, and I remember just suddenly seeing her in the distance and her boat being lit up as like all of these boats came from the Vendée Globe committee, and we were on the rib that was going to transfer onto the boat, and Josh basically picked me up and threw me onto the Imoca, and I saw Pip, and it was just this relief and pride, and it was the most phenomenal feeling of just emotion, I guess, that I don't tend to normally express. And I just jumped into the boat and just threw myself around her, and we literally just hugged for ages, and it was incredible. Like, I was just so proud of her and the relief that she was there and alive.
Crossed the finish line, and it took me a while to find that incredible joy inside me, and for a while I thought that it wasn't going to be there because I just missed my friends and my family so much. But actually the race committee were incredible. You know, they put on a really good reception for me, and my team was there, and I had other friends who actually travelled from inside France, so there was a handful of people, and just seeing them and then really kind of just stepping back and thinking about it, you know, then that overwhelming feeling of pride and astonishment and this, you know, this fulfillment kind of came over me, and I just felt so proud. I just felt so proud.
I'm really excited about the next campaign. I think we've already built such momentum, so I think I'm just really excited to continue telling that story. From my point of view, it is a story that is kind of very holistic. It's not just about sailing and the sport. I think it's about so much more than that. I think it's about human resilience, you know, mental endurance, seeing everything that Pip goes through from now until the next campaign.
I feel like all that potential that Pip has, she's finally got the backing and support she needs to deliver on that potential. Like, I feel like she's finally got the recognition she's been fighting for the last 30 years as a female sailor who's not from a conventional sailing background, who's not followed the conventional sailing pathway. She's got a really good chance with a really good boat and a really good team and a really good sponsor to fight at the front. And she won't say that. She'll say she'd like to be in the top 10. I think she can be at the front. If we can get more sponsors on board, if we can really give her the best opportunity to make the most out of that boat and the most out of her talent, she should be fighting at the front. And she proved that last year when she was in an old boat fighting people who should have been a long way ahead of her.
The next campaign, I mean, it's so chalk and cheese. I feel unbelievably privileged to be part of it. What an incredible opportunity to have been part of something from such an embryonic and infant stage to where we are now, a solo sailor who is known for her skill and her gift, to have incredible sponsors who recognise that from kind of the proof that she's done in the race, and to now build with Pip into a professional and new and competitive campaign where she has the ability now to have a competitive finish.
2024 will be different, I think, because we are a professional team that mean business. That Pip has got the resource, the opportunity to make a real go of the 2024 campaign, and she should be up there at the front, fighting it out in that top fleet. And I think, she won't say this, I think she should be heading for the first British winner of Vendée Globe 2024. The thing I'm most proud of for the 2020 campaign, I think, is Pip. It has to be Pip.
Pip? Yeah, I don't think we can attribute it to anything else. I was unbelievably proud of her. I mean, what she had achieved and where she had come from, and, you know, the role model she is even to my 3 girls. And yeah, she is a phenomenal human being.
What makes me most proud of the last race is, I think, how well she did from a performance point of view, really her sort of her sailing performance and her pace and weather and all of that side of things, and how well she sort of managed the boat. Yeah, just really proud of that.
Getting to the start line, we started with nothing, absolutely nothing. I started on my own in 2018 with a bank loan, and I had no idea how I was going to make it work, but I just wanted to give myself the opportunity, and I thought that if hard work could bring this into being, then I would force this campaign into existence. And I think about 2019 and how we got through in a boat that was literally limping around each course, and you know, the amount of money I had to borrow, and then people who donated to Crown Funds and donated their time, and you know, we crawled along the bottom to gain a place in one of the world's toughest sporting events. And then how that changed against the odds through lockdown, and we ended up, you know, with a title sponsor and in great shape at the start, you know, and that's an incredibly proud, you know, that whole journey is something that makes me feel proud. But then, you know, I guess the other thing is the performance that I managed with that boat. You know, how we did manage to prepare it to become competitive, a 21-year-old boat. And at one stage I was 15th, like more than halfway through the fleet in a 21-year-old boat, ahead of boats with foils, and that makes me proud.
3 words that sum up the last campaign are, I think, inspirational, has to be, competitive, and surprising.
Empowering, relatable, awesome.
Very intense.
Southern Ocean speed.
Oh, good grief.